The sky was heavy with smoke. The ruins of the alien village lay silent, and only the wind whispered through the broken stone walls. A lone human walked slowly across the ground, his boots crunching on scattered bones and shattered pottery. He had seen many war-torn places, but this silence felt different, like something fragile was still hiding inside. He carried a small pack on his back, nothing more than water, dried rations, and a knife. He had traveled for days without speaking to another soul. His plan was simple: pass through these ruins and find the nearest spaceport, but fate had other plans for him. As he turned a corner, he froze. His ears caught a sound so faint he thought it was the wind at first. A thin cry, soft, trembling, almost like the whimper of a wounded animal. But no, it carried pain and despair, the sound of a voice weak and desperate. He stopped and listened harder. The cry came again, and this time it was clear. It was a woman's voice, broken and tired. He stepped closer, moving carefully through the collapsed homes. His eyes searched the shadows until he saw her. A figure sat against a cracked wall, her body bent forward. Her skin was pale lavender, the sign of her alien race. Her clothes were torn, her hair tangled, and in her thin arms she clutched something small and fragile. A baby, wrapped in dirty cloth, unmoving except for a faint, trembling breath. The human's heart sank. He had seen soldiers die. He had seen enemies fall. But this sight was different. It was not war. It was despair. The alien mother raised her head slowly, her eyes dull but burning with fear. When she saw him, she gasped and pulled her child tighter against her chest. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "My milk has dried up, human. My baby hasn't nourished for days." The man felt his chest tighten. He had expected fear, or hatred, or even an attack, but instead he found a plea. He looked at the baby, its tiny chest rising weakly, too weak to cry loudly. The sound that had reached him was only the mother's desperate whisper. He stood frozen, his mind torn. This was not his fight, not his family. He could walk away. No one would know. But the mother's words clung to him like chains. Her lips trembled. "If you have even a drop, anything, help him." The human knelt down slowly, showing his hands to calm her fear. He unstrapped his pack and pulled out his water flask, gently. He tilted it towards her. She shook her head, her eyes full of sorrow. "Water is not enough," she said. "He needs nourishment. He needs more than I can give." Her voice broke, her arms shaking as she tried to rock her child. The baby let out a weak cough, then fell still again. The human looked around the ruins. His soldier's eyes scanned for signs of food, supplies, anything. He knew what he carried would not save the child. He had seen hungry children before, their eyes sinking, their cries fading until silence swallowed them, and he hated that memory. The mother leaned forward, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You are human. You are strong. You can find something." She clutched his sleeve with trembling fingers. "Please, do not let him die like this." The human felt something stir inside him. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to tell her he could not help. But the baby's small breath caught his attention again. So fragile, so close to fading. He swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. He gently placed his cloak around her shoulders, shielding her from the cold wind. She blinked at him, confused. He did not answer her question with words, but his action was enough. He stood again, eyes narrowing as he looked at the ruined streets. If there was food in this village, someone had hidden it. Someone had taken it away while leaving mothers and children to starve. He clenched his fists. He had no reason to get involved, but the sound of the child's cough echoed in his chest like thunder. The alien mother whispered behind him, her voice soft, almost broken. Why would you care?" He did not turn back. His eyes stayed on the horizon, his voice low but steady. "Because no child should starve while I still breathe." The words surprised even him, but once spoken, they became a vow. The mother lowered her head, clutching her baby tightly. A single tear slid down her cheek as if hope had been reborn in her heart. The human tightened the strap of his pack. Every step he took into the ruins now filled with a new weight. He was not just a traveler anymore. He was a shield, a chance, maybe the only chance this alien mother and child had left. And somewhere in the silence of the broken village, Unseen eyes watched him, waiting. The night was quiet, but inside the ruined shelter the air was heavy with fear and weakness. The human sat by the doorway. His eyes scanning the shadows, the alien mother clutched her child tightly, rocking him back and forth. Her whispers filled the dark, not songs of comfort, but pleas that carried sorrow. She had begged him to stay, and though his heart told him to keep moving, his feet refused to leave. He had survived by walking away from problems that were not his. Yet now, here he was, trapped by a pair of desperate eyes and a baby's faint breathing. The child stirred weakly, letting out a soft whimper. His lips were dry. His small chest rose and fell with fragile effort. The human's throat tightened as he looked closer. The baby was starving, his body already thin, his skin pale. He knew such sights from war. He had seen children lose their strength day by day until they slipped into silence. The mother looked at him, her eyes wide and shining with tears. "Please," she said again, her voice breaking. "Even a crumb, even the smallest drop, anything you can spare." She lowered her head in shame, her arms trembling. "I beg you, human, I have nothing left to give him." The man reached into his pack and pulled out a ration bar. It was hard, meant for soldiers, tasteless but full of strength. He broke a piece and handed it forward. The mother took it with shaking fingers. She pressed it against her child's lips. But the baby turned away, too weak to chew, too young to swallow such food. Her shoulders sank. She looked at the human with despair. "It is useless," she whispered. "He cannot take this. He needs milk. He needs real nourishment." Her hands tightened around the child as if holding him closer would keep death away. The human stared at the ration in his hand, then at the child. His chest burned with frustration. He had food, yet it was not the right kind. He had strength, yet it was not enough. He cursed under his breath, anger rising not at the mother or the baby, but at the cruelty of this ruined world. The mother touched his sleeve gently, her voice softer than before. "You are human, you are strong. I have seen your kind. You cross deserts, you fight storms, you always endure. You can find something, you can do what I cannot." Her eyes glistened, her face pale. "Please, if you walk away, he will die tonight." The man turned his face away, because looking into her eyes felt like carrying a burden he had never wanted. He had fought wars, he had lost comrades, he had buried friends, but this fragile life trembling in front of him, shook him in a way battles never did. He stood suddenly, pacing in the dust. His boots echoed in the silence, his mind was racing. Should he go into the raiders' camp? Should he search the ruins? Should he risk everything for strangers? A voice inside him whispered that it was foolish, that he would die for nothing, but another voice, older and heavier, told him that walking away would haunt him forever. The baby coughed weakly, the sound small but sharp, like a blade through the heart. The mother kissed her child's forehead, whispering broken words in her own alien tongue. The human did not understand them, but he understood the tone. It was the voice of someone begging fate to change. He walked back to her, kneeling close. His voice was low, steady, but firm. "If I try to find something, the raiders will hunt me. You must be ready. If I fail, you must run." Her eyes widened. She shook her head. "I will not leave without him. If he dies, I die too." Her voice cracked, but there was steel beneath her words. The human felt respect stir in his chest. She was frail, starving, but her spirit was unbroken. He nodded slowly, his decision carved into stone. He tightened his belt, checked his knife, and slung his pack across his shoulder. The mother caught his hand suddenly, her touch trembling but desperate. "Human?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me? For him? We are not your kind. Why risk your life?" He paused, his jaw tightening. His eyes met hers. There was no easy answer, no reason that made sense, but he spoke the only truth he had. Because no mother should beg for her child's life while others have food, and because no baby should starve while I still breathe. Her tears flowed freely now. She lowered her head, whispering something like a prayer. Her grip on his hand loosened, as if she trusted him with the last thread of her hope. The human stood and stepped into the cold night. His shadow stretched across the ruins, swallowed by the darkness. The stars above offered no light, only silence. The ruins were wide, and the raiders were near. But he carried with him the sound of a baby's cough and a mother's plea. Each step he took away from the shelter felt heavier, as though invisible chains bound him to the fragile lives behind him. He did not know if he could succeed. He did not know if he would return, but he knew one thing for certain. He would not let the baby's last breath be taken by hunger, not while his heart still beat. And in the silence of the ruins, something moved, watching him from afar. The human moved through the ruins like a shadow. His boots touched the ground softly, his ears listening for every sound. The night was quiet, but it was not safe. He could feel the presence of others, watching, waiting. He knew the raiders were near. They always came where weakness lived. They had taken the food from this village, leaving only bones and empty homes. They were the reason the alien mother sat starving with her child. They were the reason a baby's breath was fading. He stopped by a broken wall, pressing his back against the stone. In the distance, he saw the glow of fire, orange and cruel against the black sky. Shadows moved around it. Tall figures laughing, voices sharp, the sound of clinking metal and tearing food. His jaw tightened. It was true. They were hoarding supplies. He crouched lower, watching carefully. The raiders were alien, not of the same race as the mother. Their skin was thick, their bodies heavy. They carried weapons made from scavenged parts, blades sharpened from scrap, rifles that hummed with unstable power. These were not warriors of honor. They were scavengers, preying on the weak. The human's eyes narrowed. He counted their numbers, 6 around the fire. But more shadows moved in the tents behind them, perhaps 10 or 15 in total. A small camp, but too many for one man. Still, his mind raced. He did not need to fight them all. He only needed to take what the baby needed. He shifted closer, keeping low. The smell of roasted meat reached him. His stomach turned with both hunger and anger. He thought of the mother's thin arms, the child's weak cough, and his fists clenched tighter. These raiders feasted while a baby starved only streets away. One of the raiders laughed loudly, holding up a sealed container. Inside, the human saw clear packs of liquid nourishment, special formula made for infants of many races. His chest burned. That was it. That was what the baby needed. His hand moved to the knife on his belt. But before he could step closer, he froze. A pair of glowing eyes stared at him from the shadows. Not far. Another raider, standing guard. The human dropped low. His heart pounding. The guard sniffed the air like an animal. His weapon in hand. If he was discovered, it would be the end. He pressed his body against the wall of a ruined building. Holding his breath, the guard moved closer, each step heavy, the ground trembling under his weight. The human gripped his knife tighter, ready to strike if needed. The raider paused only a few feet away, looking around suspiciously. Then, with a grunt, he turned back toward the camp. The human exhaled slowly, his body tense. He could not afford mistakes. He moved again, circling the camp, studying the way the raiders stored their loot. He saw barrels of water, crates of dried food, and most importantly, a locked chest near the fire, the same one with infant formula. But stealing it would not be easy. The raiders guarded it closely, their laughter loud but their eyes sharp. He would need to wait until they grew careless, until their hunger and drink made them slow. He crouched on the edge of the ruins, watching. The flames flickered across his face, his eyes reflecting the firelight. He thought of the alien mother sitting alone, clutching her baby in the cold shelter. He thought of her broken whisper. "My milk has dried up, human. My baby has not nourished for days." Those words burned inside him like iron. The raiders drank and feasted, their voices louder now. The human knew this was his chance. He moved quickly but silently, slipping from shadow to shadow. His heart beat like a drum. Every step a risk, every breath a gamble. He reached the back of the camp, crouching behind a crate. From here, the chest of supplies was only a few steps away. The raiders were laughing too hard to notice. He gritted his teeth and slid forward, each movement smooth. His hand reached for the chest, fingers brushing the cold metal. But before he could lift it, a sound split the night. A baby's cry. The human's blood turned to ice. It was not the alien mother's child, but another. From one of the tents came a thin wail, and immediately a female raider appeared, lifting her own infant in her arms. The human froze, shock filling his chest. These raiders, these monsters, They had children too. They stole from others, yet they fed their own. The female raider soothed her baby, opening a pack from the chest, pouring the formula into a small tube. She pressed it to the child's lips. The baby drank greedily. Small sounds of relief escaping. The human's stomach twisted. He wanted to rush forward, to take it. But he knew he would be torn apart if he moved now. He slid back into the shadows, his mind burning. How could he steal food meant for a baby, even if that baby's parents were killers? Yet how could he return empty-handed when another child was dying in the ruins? He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. His jaw ached from holding back the roar inside him. The world was cruel, but tonight he had to make a choice. The fire crackled, the raiders laughed, and the human's eyes stayed fixed on that chest. His heart was no longer steady. It thundered with anger, with conflict, with the weight of a decision that would change everything. And in the dark, unseen by the raiders, he whispered to himself, "I will not let that child die, no matter the cost." The human crouched in the shadows, his breath slow and controlled. In front of him, the chest of supplies gleamed faintly in the firelight. The raiders laughed and ate. Their voices rough, their movements lazy. They believed no one would dare to come near them, but they were wrong. The human's hand tightened on his knife. He did not want to fight, but he was ready for one. His eyes moved from the chest to the raiders, counting, measuring, waiting. He knew the timing had to be perfect. One mistake, and the mother's baby would die, and he would join the dead too. Slowly, he slid closer, keeping low. His heart pounded, but his steps were silent. The dirt clung to his boots. The smell of smoke filled his lungs. He reached the side of the chest and crouched. His hands gripped the lock. It was crude, made of iron scraps. He pressed the edge of his knife against it, twisting gently. The laughter behind him grew louder. A raider shouted, raising a jug of drink. The others cheered. Fire sparked high into the sky. The human worked faster, his knife grinding against the metal. The lock creaked softly. He froze, his body tense, but no one turned. Then, with a snap, the lock gave way. The human's chest tightened with relief. He lifted the lid slightly. Inside were packs of food, sealed bars, and the precious infant formula. His eyes locked on it, his hand moving quickly. He stuffed as much as he could into his pack, his movements quick and desperate. But fate is cruel. One of the raiders turned, his eyes falling on the chest. He saw the lid open. His laughter stopped. His hand reached for his weapon. The human reacted instantly, slamming the lid shut and spinning into the shadows. The raider roared, "Thief!" Chaos exploded. The camp erupted in shouts, weapons clashing against armor. Fires blazed higher. The human sprinted through the ruins, his pack heavy with stolen life. His boots struck the ground hard, each step echoing. Behind him, the raiders gave chase, their cries wild, their rage like thunder. Arrows flew past him, sharp blades of light fired from crude rifles. Sparks burst on stone walls as shots missed him by inches. He ducked low, his breath burning, his muscles screaming. He darted through broken alleys, leaping over debris, his mind focused only on one thing: get back to the mother and her baby. The raiders knew the ruins better than him. They moved fast, circling, trying to trap him. Shadows flickered on every corner. The human's chest burned with exhaustion. But he kept going. He had carried men through worse. He told himself he would not stop now. He ducked behind a collapsed tower, catching his breath for a heartbeat. The sound of footsteps drew closer, heavy and fast. He pressed himself against the stone, knife in hand. A raider rushed past, snarling. Unaware the human was so close, the man struck swiftly, his blade silent. The raider fell without a cry. But others were close. He could not fight them all, not yet. He slipped back into the shadows, moving quickly. His mind mapped the path. Through the broken plaza, down the cracked steps, across the old market road. If he reached the shelter, he could defend it. He could protect them. The shouts grew louder. The raiders had found their fallen comrade. Anger echoed through the ruins. Their voices promised death. The human's jaw tightened. He pushed harder, his legs like fire. A torch lit the alley ahead. A raider blocked the path, weapon raised. The human did not slow. He hurled himself forward, knife flashing. The two collided, steel against steel. Sparks lit the darkness, the raider swung heavy. But the human was faster. He drove his blade deep, twisting free, the raider collapsed and the human ran again. His breath tore at his lungs, his vision blurred. But he did not stop. Every step carried the weight of the baby's cry. Every heartbeat carried the mother's desperate plea. The pack thumped against his back, filled with the only chance they had. Finally, the ruined shelter came into sight. Its walls broken, its roof gone. But inside, hope waited. The human pushed harder, his body screaming in pain. He leapt over the last wall, stumbling inside. The mother gasped, her eyes wide. She saw the pack, saw the sweat and blood on his face. "You came back," she whispered, her voice shaking. He dropped the pack beside her, his chest heaving. "I said I would," he replied, his voice rough but steady. She reached inside, pulling out the formula with trembling hands. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she held it close. She pressed it to her baby's lips. The child stirred weakly, a soft sound escaping. For the first time, life returned to the tiny body. The mother's tears fell freely, her lips trembling as she looked at the human. "You risked your life for us?" she whispered. "Why, human, why?" He did not answer at first. His eyes moved to the shadows outside, where the shouts of raiders still echoed. They would not give up. They would come. Finally, he looked at her, his eyes steady, his jaw tight. "Because no one else would," he said. The mother bowed her head, clutching her child. Her tears fell on the baby's face, mixing sorrow with hope. The human tightened his grip on his knife, stepping toward the doorway. The night was not over. The raiders were coming, and he would be ready. The shelter was dark and broken, but inside, something fragile stirred like a flame against the cold. The alien mother held the feeding tube in her trembling hands, her heart pounding as she pressed it to her baby's lips. The human stood at the doorway, sweat on his face, blood on his sleeve, listening for the raider's return. The baby's mouth moved weakly, at first too faint to take anything. The mother whispered softly in her own tongue, words that sounded like prayers. Her tears dripped onto the baby's pale skin. Then, slowly, gently, the child began to drink. The sound was small, almost nothing. Yet to the mother it was thunder. Her body shook with relief. She gasped as the baby's eyes fluttered open. Faint but alive, the child swallowed again, and again. Every drop was a victory. Every breath a promise that hope was not dead. The human turned his head, watching them. For days, the baby had starved. For hours, he had risked his life to bring back what now rested in the mother's hands. And now, at last, the child lived. A knot in his chest loosened, but he did not smile. Danger still lurked outside, and he knew joy could be stolen in a single heartbeat. The mother's voice cracked as she looked at him. "He drinks, human. He drinks." Her tears flowed freely. She clutched the baby close, whispering, "You saved him. You saved us both." The man shifted uncomfortably. His body was weary, his hands stained with dirt and blood. He wanted to say it was nothing, that he had only done what anyone should have done. But deep down he knew. Many would not have, many would have walked away. He turned back to the doorway, scanning the ruins. The fires of the raiders' camp still glowed in the distance. Their voices echoed faintly, angry, searching. They had lost their supplies, and they would not forgive that. The baby made a small sound, not a cry, but a soft murmur. The human glanced back and saw the child's tiny hand grip the cloth around him. His chest tightened in a way he could not explain. He had seen death too often, yet here was life clinging stubbornly, refusing to fade. The mother wiped her eyes, her voice breaking as she whispered, "I thought I had lost him. I thought I would watch him fade into nothing. But you gave him back to me?" She looked at the human with awe, her gaze heavy with emotion. "Why would you risk so much for us?" The human's face was hard, his eyes shadowed by the flickering light. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he crouched near the fire pit in the shelter, lighting a small flame to chase away the cold. "Finally," he said quietly, "because no child deserves to starve, no matter what blood runs in their veins." Her lips trembled as she held her child tighter. Her heart ached with gratitude. Yet fear did not leave her. She whispered again, almost too soft to hear. They will come. They will not stop. You stole from them. They will want revenge. The human nodded, his jaw tightening. I know. His hand rested on the knife at his side. His body was tired, but his spirit was sharp. He had not survived so long by giving in to fear. The baby's breathing grew stronger, soft but steady. The mother leaned back against the wall, exhaustion washing over her. Yet her eyes never left the human. She studied him with wonder, as though she could not understand why he chose to stand beside her. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying distant footsteps. The human's ears caught it. His body tensed. He moved to the doorway again. Eyes scanning the dark, shadows flickered against the ruined walls. They are searching, he muttered, his voice low, steady. They will find us soon. The mother's hands tightened on her child. Fear flashed across her face. What will we do? She whispered. The human looked back at her, his eyes hard but calm. We survive, he said. His voice carried a weight that silenced the fear in the room. As long as I breathe, no one touches you, no one touches him. The mother stared at him, stunned. No one had ever spoken such words to her. Not even her own people. To hear them from a human, her enemy's kind, was like hearing hope from the mouth of despair. The baby let out another soft sound, this one stronger. The mother smiled through her tears, pressing her lips against the child's forehead. She whispered a name, one she had never dared to speak before. Leora, she said. Her people gave names only when life was certain, and now, because of the human, she dared to give her baby a name. The human heard it and turned his head. Leora, he repeated softly, letting the name rest on his tongue. For the first time in years, a faint smile tugged at his lips, but the moment of peace was brief. A distant horn blew through the ruins, loud and sharp. The raiders were calling to each other, gathering. The hunt was beginning. The mother's smile faded. Fear returned to her eyes. They are coming, she whispered, her voice shaking. The human stood tall, pulling his cloak tighter around his shoulders. His knife gleamed in the firelight. His voice was steady, unshaken. Let them come, he said. His eyes burned with steel. They will not take this child, not while I stand. The mother clutched her baby, tears in her eyes. For the first time, she believed those words. For the first time, she did not feel alone. And outside, the footsteps grew closer, the shadows longer, the raiders were coming, and the night was far from over. The night deepened, the ruins breathed with silence and danger. The human sat by the doorway of the broken shelter, his knife resting on his knee, his ears strained at every sound, his eyes searching the dark. The alien mother sat in the corner, rocking her child, whispering soft words of comfort. The baby's breathing was steadier now, each small sound a reminder that life still clung to him. The human's body was heavy with exhaustion. His muscles ached from the chase. His wounds stung where blades had grazed his skin, but his spirit was sharp. He had made a choice, and there was no turning back. He would not abandon them, not while he still lived. The mother watched him in silence, her eyes wide and uncertain. She had seen humans before. Soldiers, raiders, strangers who brought nothing but fear. Yet this one, scarred and tired, stood like a wall between her and death. She whispered softly, "Why do you stay, human? You could leave, you could save yourself." The man did not look back at her. His gaze stayed fixed on the ruins outside. "Because they will come, and if I leave, you and the child will not see morning." His voice was low, steady, like stone. Her lips trembled. "But why should our lives matter to you?" she asked, her voice cracked with both doubt and hope. "We are not your kind. You owe us nothing." He finally turned his head, his eyes meeting hers. His stare was sharp, filled with a fire that words could not fully explain. "I owe the child," he said simply. "No life this small should end because others choose cruelty." Her throat tightened, tears filled her eyes again. But they were not only from sorrow now. They were from something she had not felt in years. Trust. She lowered her head, whispering, "Then you are not like the others." The human said nothing, but his jaw clenched. His mind drifted back to faces long gone. comrades who had died in battles that never ended. He had carried too many memories of loss, but tonight, here, he had something worth protecting, something fragile yet powerful enough to remind him what it meant to fight. The baby stirred, a small sound breaking the silence. The mother smiled faintly through her tears. She pressed the child against her chest, whispering, "He is stronger already. He feels hope. I can feel it too." The human nodded slightly, then moved closer to the fire pit. He picked up a broken piece of wood, lighting it with the small flame. The glow pushed back the shadows for a moment, revealing the cracks in the walls and the scars on his face. The mother studied him in the firelight, seeing the hardness in him, but also something softer buried deep. Outside, the sound of footsteps echoed faintly. The raiders were still searching. Their voices carried by the wind. The human tightened his grip on the knife. He whispered, "They will come in waves. They will not stop until they believe they have broken us." The mother's body shook. "We cannot fight them all," she whispered. "There are too many." The human's eyes narrowed, his voice steady. "We do not need to fight them all. We only need to survive them." She looked at him with confusion. "Survive?" "Yes," he said firmly. "Survival is victory. Every hour the child breathes, every moment we deny them what they want, we win." The mother's heart pounded at his words. She realized he was not just a fighter. He was a survivor. A man who carried storms in his chest but refused to bow to them. And now, he had bound her and her child to that same strength. The night stretched on. The raiders' voices came closer, torches glowing in the distance. The human rose to his feet, standing tall despite his exhaustion. The mother clutched her baby tighter, fear rising again. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice like iron. She obeyed without question, watching as he moved to the doorway. His shadow stretched across the floor, large and unyielding. The glow of the fire caught his face, and for the first time, she thought he looked like more than a man. He looked like a shield. The first raider appeared, his torch blazing. His eyes caught the human, and he shouted, raising his weapon. Others followed, their voices filling the night. The mother gasped, holding her baby close. But the human did not move. His stance was steady. His knife gleamed in the firelight. His voice was low, but it carried across the ruins. "If you want them, you come through me." The raiders snarled, circling. They expected fear. They expected weakness. But what they saw was a man who stood alone without trembling. His presence unsettled them. The mother's eyes filled with awe. She whispered to her child, "He will protect us. He will not let them take you." Her tears fell, but her heart began to believe. The raiders lunged, and the night filled with chaos. Blades clashed, sparks flew. The human moved like fire, every strike fast, every step precise. He was outnumbered, but not outmatched. His body bled, but his will was unbroken. Inside the shelter, the mother whispered prayers, rocking her child as battle raged outside. She knew that if the human fell, so would they, but she also knew he was fighting with more than strength. He was fighting with purpose. Minutes felt like hours. The raiders fell back, snarling in anger. Their voices echoed as they retreated into the shadows. The human stood at the doorway, his chest heaving, blood dripping from a cut on his arm, but his eyes still burned with fire. He turned back to the mother, his voice rough but steady. "They will come again, but so will I." She clutched her baby, whispering softly, "You are not only a fighter, human. You are our bond. You are our survival." The human's chest tightened at her words. He had carried many titles in his life. Soldier, wanderer, killer, but never this. For the first time, he felt something heavier than war but lighter than death. And in that ruined shelter, as the baby breathed stronger in his mother's arms, the bond of survival was forged, unbroken and unyielding. The ruins trembled under the sound of engines. Kale stood tall though his body ached, his hand gripping the knife like it was part of him. Beside him, the girl clung to his torn cloak, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She whispered her new name softly, Lyra, as if reminding herself it was real. Kale glanced down at her, his voice steady despite the storm around them. "Stay behind me," he said. "This ends tonight." The hunters arrived, more than before, their shapes cutting through the smoke of the broken outpost. Their armor glinted red under the faint starlight. Their weapons gleamed with cruel hooks and jagged edges. Voices rose in mocking laughter, echoing off stone and ash. "There he is, the human fool," one sneered. "Bleeding weak, yet still protecting trash." Lyra pressed closer, her tiny fingers clutching Kale's sleeve. Her heart pounded, the sound loud in her ears. Kale took a step forward, his cloak brushing the dirt, his eyes hard and unyielding. "She is not trash," he said, his voice sharp as steel. "She is Lyra, and she belongs with me." The hunters paused, surprised by his defiance. Then their laughter roared even louder. "Look," one said, "the human gives the scrap a name. How touching, how pathetic." Another raised his staff, pointing toward Lyra. "Give her back, or you die slowly." Kale's jaw clenched, his knife steady in his hand. "I already bled for her," he said. "I'll bleed again if I must." Lyra gasped softly, her tears welling. She wanted to scream, to beg him not to fight, but her voice caught in her throat. All she could do was whisper his name, not a sound of command but a prayer. The hunters moved in, circling, their red eyes glowing in the smoke. Kale's muscles tensed, his breath slow and measured. He knew he could not fight them all, not forever. But surrender was not an option, not with Lyra behind him. The girl who once had nothing now had a name, a bond, a reason to live. He would not let anyone rip that away. The clash came fast, staff swinging, blade striking. Kale moved with fury, his knife flashing in arcs of steel. Every strike sent sparks into the air. Every block rattled his bones. The hunters pressed hard, but Kale refused to fall. His cloak whipped through the dust. His eyes burned with fire. Each wound only deepened his resolve. Behind him, Lyra crouched low, her small body shaking. She wanted to hide her eyes, but she forced herself to watch. Every movement he made, every step he took, she felt it inside her. Her heart beat with his, her fear twisted into something else. Not just terror, but strength rising through sorrow. She whispered to herself, "He fights for me." Her voice trembling but filled with awe. The battle raged, but Kale's body began to slow. His wounds bled, his strength waned. The hunters sensed it, their laughter rising as they closed in. "You can't win, human," one growled. "No one defies us." Kale's voice came back sharp, his words like fire. "Then let me be the first," he said. He lunged, striking with everything he had, forcing two hunters back. But the third slammed a staff against his chest, knocking him to his knees. Lyra screamed, rushing forward, her hands grabbing Kale's arm. "No," she cried, her voice breaking. "Don't hurt him." The hunters laughed cruelly, their red eyes fixed on her. "There," one sneered, "the scrap speaks." Another reached out, his hook aiming for her cloak. Kale roared, surging back to his feet, his knife slashing across the hunter's arm. Blood sprayed, the hunter howled, and the others stepped back in shock. Kale's body shook, but his eyes still blazed. "You will not touch her," he said, his voice low and deadly. The hunters glared, muttering among themselves. They had expected an easy victory, but this human's defiance was unbreakable. Slowly, one by one, they began to retreat, dragging their wounded. Their leader snarled, his voice filled with venom. "This is not over, human. She will never belong to you. She will never belong to anyone." Kale stepped forward, blood dripping, his voice sharp as a blade. "She belongs to herself," he said. "And as long as I breathe, no chain will ever bind her again." The hunters vanished into the shadows, their engines fading into the night. The ruins grew silent once more, the fire crackling weakly. Kale dropped to one knee, exhaustion crashing over him. Lyra rushed to his side, her small hands desperate as they tried to hold him upright. Her tears fell fast, landing on his blood-stained cloak. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You stayed for me." Kale's eyes met hers, tired but steady. "I told you," he said. "You are Lyra now, and you are not alone." Her lips quivered, her chest heavy with emotion. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder, sobbing quietly. For the first time, her tears were not only sorrow. They carried release. She was no longer nothing, no longer scrap, no longer nameless. She was Lyra, and someone had chosen her. The first light of dawn touched the horizon, spilling gold across the ruins. The night had been filled with chains, fear, and blood. But morning brought something new. Kale stood slowly, leaning on his knife for support. Lyra clung to his cloak, her eyes shining as they looked toward the rising sun. The galaxy was still dangerous, still cruel, but in this moment hope lived. Two souls scarred by loss had found each other. And as the light spread, Kale whispered softly, "This is the new dawn, Lyra, our dawn."